Hey, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I make videos about kind of crunchy motherhood, lifestyle, and more recently I've been sharing videos about TTC, trying to conceive, because my husband and I have been trying to get pregnant with baby number 2 for almost a year now. So if you want to follow along with that journey, make sure to hit that little subscribe button down below. Today, I am sitting down with you and we're talking about OPKs, or ovulation predictor kits. We're talking about how they work and how to use them correctly. I say correctly because I've actually seen a handful of videos on here that give incorrect instructions, which I'll talk more about. So if you are going to be using these soon, or if maybe you've been using them and you're just not sure if you're doing it right, I am going to give you all the information that I can think of that you need to know, and I'll also put chapters down below, so if you're just looking for something specific, you can skip around really easily. And quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. I'm just someone who has used these for a long time, and I am someone that likes to do a lot of research, even for relatively simple things like this, because I want to make sure that I know that I'm doing whatever I'm doing correctly. Okay, OPKs, also sometimes called LH strips, are used, as the name suggests, to help you predict when you're going to ovulate. This is because they detect LH, or luteinizing hormone, in your urine. And a surge in LH is what signals your body to ovulate. I think the best way to understand how these tests work is to actually understand how ovulation works. When you start your period, estrogen is going to be pretty low, but as you go through your follicular phase, which is from the start of your period up until ovulation, estrogen is gradually going to increase in your system. Once estrogen reaches a certain level or threshold, it triggers a surge of LH, which is what we're testing for, because that is the signal your body's waiting for in order to ovulate. The test strips that I use are the Easy at Home brand. This is the only kind I've ever used. They are so affordable. You can get a ton in one pack, or you can also get combo packs that have like 10 or so pregnancy tests in them as well. And I will link those in the description box if you want to check those out. So just know that the information I give in this video should be applicable for the majority of OPKs, because to my knowledge, they're all pretty similar, but they also could be a little bit different. So it's always so important to make sure that you read the instructions for the brand that you get, just in case something is a little bit different. So now you've got your test, when the heck do you start using them? I've seen quite a few people say that they start using them the day after their period ends, and unless you have really short cycles, you probably don't need to do this and will just end up wasting a bunch of strips if you do. And again, this is why I would advise you to look over the instructions, because in the Easy at Home pamphlet, there's a little chart that tells you when you should start testing based on the average length of your cycle. I'll also try to find a chart online and put it here on the screen and in the description as well. If you're someone like me and your cycle length varies a little bit, I just use my shortest cycle length in the last 5 cycles as a reference. This is where I've seen quite a few people advise others incorrectly. Do not use your first morning urine, I guess unless the test specifies to, but if I bought an LH test that told me to use my first morning urine, I probably would take it back, because I immediately wouldn't trust that. You have to remember that this is not like a pregnancy test. Your LH surge actually starts in your brain, travels through your bloodstream, and when some of it gets filtered out of your system through your kidneys, then it shows up in your urine. And this can take a few hours, so that's generally why it's not recommended to test first thing in the morning. There's not necessarily one best time to take these tests. If you look it up, the majority of articles that I've seen recommend sometime between 10 and 6, or around noon. And I personally recommend testing twice a day, and here's why. Up until very recently, I would only test once a day, usually around noon, and I always saw a positive test sometime in my cycle doing that. So I felt like it was a waste of strips to do more than that. I even tested it out like a while ago, and my first positive test was at noon. So I felt like that validated my reasoning for the once a day thing. But a few months ago, I missed my surge altogether. After that, I started testing twice a day, and every single time since then, my surge has actually started in the evening and not around noon. And it's so crucial to catch the onset of that surge, because most experts say that 1 to 2 days prior to ovulation is when you have your best chance of actually conceiving. So that's when you'd want to have intercourse. And it makes me wonder how many months I maybe actually missed the start of my LH surge. Even if you feel like generally you only see your LH surge at noon or around that time, every cycle could be different. So the next cycle or the cycle after that, it could show up in the evening instead. I now test around noon and then again around 6 p.m. Sometimes I just get one positive test, sometimes I get 2 or 3 positive tests, which really just indicates whether you have a short LH surge or a longer one. Regardless of what you do though, you wanna make sure that you're testing around the same time every single day. And what you're looking for in a normal cycle is that first positive test, because that's what's going to start the process of ovulation. Which brings me to my next point. What does a positive test look like? Again, these are not like pregnancy tests. There's always a little bit of LH in your system, so you are always going to see 2 lines on these tests. There's a test line and a control line. The control line on these tests at least is closer to the handle or the part that you hold, and the test line is closer to the part that you dip in your pee. All you are looking for is a test line that is as dark, if not darker, than the control line. That's it. It's honestly so simple. And I know this part stresses some people out, and that's why they maybe prefer the digital test. I personally feel like that is just a waste of money because they are so much more expensive. If you are looking at the test and squinting and holding it up to the light trying to see if it's a positive or a negative, it's probably negative, because every time I've seen a positive test, it's very clear. Even if the test line is kind of darker than you've seen it, but it's still a shade or 2 lighter than the control line, that's still a negative. I've also heard some people say that your test line is going to get darker and darker as you approach ovulation, and I just want to debunk that really quick. While that might be true for some people, it's not going to be true for everyone, and I think it can even vary within one person from cycle to cycle, because I have noticed that pattern in some of my cycles, but I've had some cycles where the test line is very, very light all the way up until ovulation. So I wouldn't spend too much time analyzing all of your negative tests and trying to see if there's a pattern there. Instead, I think it is so much more effective and less stressful to pay attention to the signs that your body will give you that you're in or approaching your fertile window, and just keep an eye out for that positive test. The kicker here is that these tests don't actually confirm ovulation. They just tell you that ovulation is probably about to happen. I've never actually heard a clear answer on when ovulation is most likely to happen after you get your first positive test, but the 2 most common time frames that I've seen given is 12 to 24 hours and then 24 to 36 hours after that first positive. The only ways that I know of to actually confirm ovulation are to get your blood drawn 7 days after you ovulate, to test for progesterone in your blood, to test for progesterone metabolite in your urine, which you can actually do at home. I think that's 7 days after your first positive OPK, and the fastest way that I know of is to monitor your BBT, and that will usually tell you within about 3 to 4 days after your first positive whether or not you've ovulated. If you'd like a separate video on that, please let me know down in the comments, because I have been tracking and monitoring my BBT for years, and it is a great and really affordable way to get some insight into what's going on with your cycle and your body. But without doing any of that, unless you have PCOS or something else maybe that can throw your hormones out of whack, once you get that first positive, you can probably assume that you're gonna ovulate. The Easy at Home strips also have a corresponding app that you can use if you'd like. I've used it a couple times and then I just deleted it because 1, I don't feel like I need it, and 2, I just try to keep the apps on my phone to a minimum. But if you want a little extra help, you can take pictures of your strips and it will identify one of them as your peak. I do think this is a little bit confusing though, because it won't actually identify any one strip as your peak until you've entered in another test after that. This is partly why I don't love the app, because if you're looking at your test and it's positive, you're technically in the clear to go and try to make a baby. But if you're waiting for this app to tell you that that's your peak, it's going to first tell you high, and it's not going to change it to peak until you've entered in another test either later that day or possibly the next day. So that just makes the whole thing more confusing for me. A few quick tips to wrap this up are: 1, if you are going to be using these because you want to get pregnant, I would highly suggest that you get them and use them a month or 2 in advance before you officially start trying, to give yourself time without the pressure to learn your body's patterns and to just figure out how these work. Because like anything new, it's gonna feel a little bit stressful and a little foreign at first. So give yourself some time to just figure the whole thing out. 2 is do not throw your pee away until your test is fully developed and you've looked at it and interpreted it. I just recently learned this because I had a test that ended up being faulty. I had already tossed my pee, and so I had to wait like an hour and a half to take another test because I just could not get myself to pee. So learn from my mistake. Faulty tests are not super common, but clearly they do happen. And last, this isn't really a tip, but it's something that you absolutely should be aware of. Do not wait until after your test is considered invalid to first look at it. If you look at your instructions, it'll usually say, look at your test after this long and do not look at it anymore after this long. For the easy at home test, it says to read your results after 5 minutes, and after 10 minutes, don't look at it anymore. I have been logging and tracking my tests for almost a year now. I keep them all in a little journal, and I have seen quite a few negative tests that look positive a little bit later on, even though they were without a doubt negative when I first read the test. Please make sure to set a timer so that you look at your test at the right time and avoid misinterpreting your results because of the dye drying and darkening with a little bit of extra time. I feel like I've been talking forever, but I also hope that it was super informative and that you have no questions. But if you somehow do and I missed something, please let me know in the comments and I will do my best to get back to you. As always, I hope you're having a beautiful day and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.